All right, gang, let's take a gander here at our Enlightenment Influence quiz. Hopefully, by this time, you should have studied and taken notes on the Enlightenment thinkers that I provided for you this week. You should have also today watched the Mr. Bird video and tried to keep up with him without cheating. Keep up with him as he walked you through some summaries, really some main thoughts of some of the Enlightenment thinkers. But the real reason that we study the Enlightenment, and this goes back to something that I say to you guys all the time, we need to be able to trace what we are studying to modern times. And you can certainly do that with the Enlightenment and the influence of the Enlightenment. And you can also know how important it is because it had an incredible influence and effect on the founding of our country and basically an influence on the beliefs of what are the American ideals, the things that we think of as being what's most important to being a American and thinking what Americans think. So I'm going to pull out the old shadow here. It would do you good right now to have a loose leaf sheet of paper off to the side. You can number it 1 through 6. I've got 6 quotes here that I've pulled directly from our founding documents. This is something that will help you as you move into honor civics as well and AP government as well if you choose to go that route. But feel free to take out your notes because this isn't something you should be able to just quickly Google up. This should be something that you should look back over your notes and the things that you've studied to be able to help you with this quiz. So go ahead and pull out all your notes on all your thinkers, sketch notes, Cornell, whatever you've gotten. Have your Mr. Bird ready, and let's go ahead and get started. So the Enlightenment Influence quiz matched the quote or idea from a founding American document with the Enlightenment thinker responsible for it. So correct answers will be the name of the Enlightenment thinker most associated with this thought. Okay? The Enlightenment thinker most associated with this thought. So, let's see what I've got. Highlight clicks. Okay. So, let me take a quick clear on my screen here. So, let's start with number 1. This comes directly from, and all these quotes come directly from either the Declaration of Independence or the United States Constitution. So the first one here says that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And like I said, this comes directly from the Declaration of Independence. So out of the Enlightenment thinkers, which one was most given credit for influencing how we feel about rights? Now, remember, the Declaration was written by Thomas Jefferson, who was probably the ultimate Enlightenment thinker in the Americas, probably even more so than Benjamin Franklin, because he was classically trained, tutored, wealthy Virginian in the humanities, as they called them at the time, and so he would have had a lot of the knowledge passed on from the century prior to that of the Enlightenment, and then taking that and molding those thoughts into an American ideal. So that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Declaration of Independence. So which one of the Enlightenment thinkers would you most associate with that, the American ideal on rights? Next, moving up, I pulled these, and they're technically not in order. They're in the reverse order. But these are the first sentences from each of the first 3 articles of the United States Constitution. Like I said, I got them in a reverse order here. Technically, Article 1, Roman numeral 1 there, all legislative or lawmaking powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress. So the power to make laws will be vested in a Congress. And then article number 2, the second article of the Constitution, starts with this sentence: the executive power shall be vested in a president. Executive power, or the power to execute the laws created by the legislative group, the put the laws in place, would be vested in a president. And then the third article says the judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court. So the judicial power, or the right to decide the fairness of laws created by the legislative group and put in place by the executive group, the right to decide whether or not they are fair or equitable or applied properly, is the power of the Supreme Court. So the power is being divided amongst three different groups. Which Enlightenment thinker, for number 2, would we give the most credit for influencing the American ideal of a separation of powers of government so that one doesn't get any more or too powerful for its own good? So moving on to number 3, this one actually comes from the U.S. Constitution, the First Amendment, and the First Amendment has 4 freedoms and 1 right involved in it. And we'll start with the First Amendment, and this is the first part of the First Amendment. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech. So in modern parlance American, this would say Congress can't make a law that establishes a state religion, as in this is the official religion of the United States of America. But also Congress cannot prohibit the free exercise thereof, meaning Congress can't make laws keeping you from practicing your religion either. Or abridging. When you abridge something, you are trimming it down, you are holding it back in some sort of way. You cannot abridge, you cannot close down the freedom of speech. So one Enlightenment thinker in particular was very concerned with the power of the church, was very anti-establishment church, wanted to separate the church and the state, and was also a very big believer in the freedom of speech. Matter of fact, one of his more famous quotes was something along the line summarizing, even though I despise what you have to say, I will give my life to protect your right to say it. And that's something, that freedom of speech obviously is something that Americans hold very, very near and dear to our hearts. Number 4, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Now, this comes directly from the Declaration of Independence, and it follows pretty closely behind the part where it says they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. But this part talks about the government, the group of people who are given the power over men to make decisions, get that power from those that they are governing. Okay, so the people in charge get their power from the people that they are in charge of. So that sets up a sort of a symbiotic relationship, saying that you don't have the power over me unless I give you that power. That's how this relationship works out. So which Enlightenment thinker do we normally think of when we think about somebody who talks about the power of government being given over the people by the very people whose power that is being practiced on them? Okay. Next, Enlightenment thinker that was concerned about things along the lines of prisoners and prisoners' rights and also the rights of the accused, that sort of thing. This comes from the U.S. Constitution, the 8th Amendment to the Constitution, and it starts like this: excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Like I said, U.S. Constitution, Amendment 8. So the crazy thing about this is excessive bail shall not be required. Bail is the money that you give to the court to let you go after you have been charged with a crime, before you go on trial. you can pay bail so that you can go free, go back to work, go back to doing whatever, or starting to prepare your defense or things like that. And if I get a ticket for speeding, say 55 and a 45 or something like that, and they write me the ticket and they arrest me and they take me to jail and they say, okay, we'll let you out if you'll pay us $1 million, and we'll hold that $1 million until you show up for your court date in 3 months. Well, if I don't have that $1 million, then I can't get out of jail and I can't do anything to defend myself or get a job to support my family or anything like that. So that's what an excessive bail would be. Or they said, you have been convicted of driving 55 and a 45. You have been speeding, and the fine for that is $1 million. That is excessive. That is too much. Nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. So you were convicted of driving 55 and a 45. So we are going to take a shotgun and shoot you in the foot. That way you won't have to worry about you driving too fast anymore. These things would be considered for, an example of an excessive bail, an excessive fine, or a cruel punishment that is just too much. Which Enlightenment thinker, looking over your notes, do you think had the most heavily influenced belief in the rights of the accused? And then finally, number 6, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged, see that word again, by the U.S., the United States, or by any state on account of sex or gender. So the right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. So this comes from the United States Constitution, the 19th Amendment, which didn't roll around until the early 1900s. So this is part of one of our founding documents, but not at the time of our founding. So which of the Enlightenment thinkers do we point to when we talk about an influence on gender roles, and the rights of women, to be honest with you, to deserve all the same civil liberties that men have? So, like I said, 6 quick quotes from founding documents right there that you can see. And these quotes show that you will see Enlightenment influence in the very founding of our country and what we think of as what is American ideals, or the thoughts about what it takes to be an American.